Spoilers ahead, watch out and enjoy. The movie begins with a scene of two brothers, Edward and Alphonse, who have been self-learning alchemy from a young age. They, for the most part, use books from their library to complete their tests. At some point, they set up a toy and cheerfully show it to their mom, who compliments them with a warm embrace. Nonetheless, after they pass on to play, she suddenly dies. Because of a heart failure, the young men presently have nobody to take care of them, and their days begin transforming into distress. Along these lines, not ready to abandon their mom, Edward concocts a thought. He makes reference to that utilizing the speculative chemistry book. They can rehearse change on their departed mother and bring her back. Alphonse, who has heard bits of gossip about the startling results, feels that it is a poorly conceived notion. However, when Edward consoles him that all in all nothing remains to be stressed over, he consents to help. In the following scene, the two siblings start their arrangements. They accumulate every one of the fixings according to the book and spot them at the focal point of the change circle. When they start reciting the custom, a hazardously enormous measure of energy begins conforming to the house, which in the long run transforms into a vortex. Right now, the siblings at long last understand that their tests has turned out badly. However, it is past the point of no return. The vortex at last rips their home off and annihilates everything in sight, even their dicks, perhaps. The scene now changes to 20 years later. An all-adult Edward is pursuing a cleric with a puzzling red stone. It is uncovered that the mysterious stone is fit for performing speculative chemistry without the assistance of any fixings. Subsequently, when the minister is cornered, he utilizes the stone to release stone support points, compelling Edward to withdraw. Following this, he calls a few startling beasts from the hidden world, and Edward likewise evokes his enchanted lance, uncovering that he has turned into an expert chemist. Right then, at that point, a Goliath-reinforced figure shows up and fires, whipping the beasts individually. He utilizes his huge strength and tosses them around like cloth dolls. However, simultaneously, his cap gets knocked off. Shockingly, the shield has no head, and his body is totally empty from within. In the meantime, Edward polishes off the other beasts and uncovers that he also has prosthetic appendages. He then specifies that in view of this quality in his body, everybody calls him the Full Metal Chemist. The scared cleric takes a stab at taking off from that point. However, Edward in the end gets up to speed to him. He then hits the minister with his prosthetic arm, making the last red stone get knocked off. At the point when maybe he has finished his main goal, the military, drove by Colonel Colt, shows up and captures the two of them. Edward asks for the stone, which he calls the Thinker's Stone. However, Colonel Colt rapidly features that it is a phony. This demolishes Edward, as he has been searching for the genuine one for quite a long time. In the meantime, the protection additionally shows up and uncovers that he is, in all honesty, Edward's more youthful sibling, Alphonse. He lost his dick. He attempts to comfort Edward. However, because of the interruption, the cleric figures out how to move away. Afterward, everybody heads to the army installation, where Colonel Colt contends that there is no such thing as the Savant Stone. You gotta quit discussing that Harry Potter crap. The one that they experienced before was basically an enhancer, which has no change capacities by any means. Nonetheless, Edward is as yet confident that the genuine stone is out there. Someplace he is frantically searching for it so he can recover his sibling, and furthermore his lost appendages. After the gathering, as Edward is planning to head home, he meets his young life dearest companion, Winery. She makes reference to that she found out about him through the news, and presently needs to assist him in his central goal of tracking down the savants with stoning. Somewhere else, the minister arrives at a dull room where a triplet of mysterious hoodlums are sitting tight for them, drove by the fierce pioneer Lost. The gathering has two different individuals: Envy, a tall being who can change into anybody, and Intemperance, a fat human who can eat up anything. Incidentally, the minister was sent on a task, however, since he was unable to take care of business. Desire is irate. Subsequently, as a discipline, she expands her hooks and spears him fiercely. When the minister is dead, Greedy dips in and eats him in the meantime. Edward is attempting to get some rest, yet he continues to have dreams about the occurrence, and from quite a while back, just after the bomb change process, Edward is brought to the entryway of truth where all information on the universe exists in. Then, at that point, the entryway abruptly opens, and he is sucked inside by a few frightening limbs. Gracious. Japan. Edward is sent flying through the universe, and at one point he sees his mom somewhere far off. He frantically attempts to connect with her, yet the following second, he is again brought external the door. Nonetheless, Presently, Edward has huge information on speculative chemistry and how to utilize it without the books. Right then, at that point, a straightforward divinity shows up and presents himself as God gracious. That's what he says to bring their friends and family resurrected. They should make an arrangement. Saying this, he removes one of Edward's appendages, as the last option had attempted to bring his mom back. Afterward, Edward awakens in his home, which is uncovered to be as yet flawless. Be that as it may, his appendage is absent, and surprisingly, his sibling Alphonse is mysteriously gone. This causes him to understand that even Alphonse forfeited himself for the speculative chemistry. Edward then, at that point, attempts to go close to where they had led the examination, and notification a monster of a human which looks like nothing near their mom. Maddened, he thumps over a shield set and starts changing to bring his sibling back. The arrangement works, and he has again brought external the entryway of truth, where the divinity is hanging tight for him. Notwithstanding, since he has mentioned for his sibling's life, he needs to again forfeit one of his appendages. Following this, he awakens in his bed with two of his appendages missing. His sibling Alphonse has additionally been resurrected, however just as covering. Back in the present, Colonel Horse takes the siblings and winery to an accomplished chemist named Exhaust, trusting that he has some data on the Thinker's Stone. When they show up at his house, Exhaust shows them his developments. He has made a few half-and-half creatures by combining various creatures with each other. He then, at that point, uncovers that a long time back, he was a conspicuous state chemist working for the public authority. However, sadly, every one of his tests were considered futile, thus he was thrown out. Presently, he is making an honest effort to think of various creations so he can be re-established back to his situation. Some way or another, I don't think creating feline canine will do that for him. In the following scene, Exhaust and Edward have a confidential gathering where the last option uncovers his whole story and why he is after the valuable stone. Exhaust specifies that while he doesn't have a clue about its careful area, he will help in recovering it. Following this, Edward and Wynne reboard a train to another city. They are endeavoring to meet Dr. Marco, another researcher who evidently is familiar with the rationalist stone. Sadly, their most memorable gathering is exceptionally unfriendly, as Marco botches them for miscreants and focuses a weapon at them accordingly. Edward attempts to quiet him down, yet winds up taking him out. At the point when Marco recaptures awareness, he will not discuss the rationalist stone, expressing it's to their benefit. All at once, he sees something wrong and takes shots at the window. Incidentally, the lethal Lady Desire was keeping an eye on them from the beginning. She gradually moves toward the triplet, and in spite of having chance on various occasions in the chest, doesn't stop. Finally, she sticks everybody to the wall, utilizing her lengthy hooks, and afterward lethally wounds Marco. Beats thought he was wearing matter-of-fact invincibility like you folks. When she leaves, Marco, utilizing his final gasps, comes clean with Edward that about the stone's starting points can be tracked down in Research Center 5. This is obviously a mystery constructing that is being utilized by the military. Edward attempts to figure out more about it, yet Marco dies, unfortunately. After the episode, Edward surges back to Exhaust's house, just to find that he has made a remarkable animal that seems to be a mix of a human and a canine. Exhaust then uncovers that he really forfeited his little girl and pet canine for his examination. Besides, the past animal was produced using his better half's body parts. Hearing this, Edward gets irritated and fires whipping Exhaust. He nearly kills the crazy lab rat, yet luckily, Alphonse shows up in the nick of time and stops him. After Exhaust is captured, Edward begins going through a few books in order to learn about Research Center 5. Notwithstanding, even following quite a while of examination, he doesn't get single hint. In any case, one night, as he is still in the library, the tactical general shows up there and uncovers that Research Facility 5 is really the moniker given to the tactical cannery that is at this point not functional. Hearing this, Edward promptly gathers his group and surges there. In the meantime, one of the senior commanders of the military does extra research on Lab 5 and figures out that it is really an enormous change circle. Clearly something is being made there. He attempts to illuminate his bosses about it, yet tragically lost prevents him from doing as such. Some way or another, the skipper surges out of the house and enters a payphone to call his general. However, Envy takes up the type of Colonel Horse and kills him. The arrangement is to approach the colonel and put him in jail for quite a while. Tragically, the arrangement works, as a couple of onlookers witness the episode and promptly report it to the specialists. Elsewhere, the mad scientist Tucker also escapes from captivity. In the next scene, Edward and his friends are apprehended by the military on grounds of being associated with the murderer Mustang. They are then locked inside a room, but Edward, using his quick thinking, quickly frees the group and helps them escape. Following this, they steal a vehicle and arrive at Laboratory 5 premises, where Colonel Mustang is in a standoff with another lieutenant. To everyone's surprise, he snaps his fingers and lights the Loop lieutenant on fire. Just as it seems that Colonel Mustang has gone insane, the burning lieutenant suddenly transforms herself. It turns out it was Envy in disguise. Soon the rest of the bad guys arrive, and Lust stabs Colonel Mustang in the abdomen, injuring him severely. Then she flees the scene, with Edward following her closely. Soon after, Edward arrives at an abandoned room where a large transmutation circle is drawn. Before he can even make sense of the situation, the mad scientist Tucker shows up. He brings out a philosopher's stone from his pocket and reveals that these things are actually mass-produced inside his facility. In fact, it is the military that is carrying out the operation. Tucker then reveals that in order to bring back someone from the dead, a sacrifice is compulsory. So the high-ranking military members were bringing back their loved ones at the expense of prisoners. Hearing this, Edward is taken aback and disgusted. But before he can inquire more, Lust arrives in the room and kills Tucker for revealing too much information. Here we get to know that Lust is a homunculus, a rare but powerful breed that is artificially created using alchemy, kind of like Moist Critical. Just then, the general, who is the mastermind behind all of this, also arrives. He explains that he did all of this to create an army of supernatural beings, and that Lust is one of his best warriors. He then enters on the power inside the room, revealing thousands of lifeless creatures inside their pods. After this, the general injects the philosopher's stone into a large tank cylinder, and when the solution enters the creature's body, they start coming to life one by one. The general is excited to see his babies finally take their first steps and goes to greet them. But to his dismay, they immediately corner him and start tearing him up. At the same time, the Colonel Alphonse Winery and the other generals also arrive at the room and team up with Edward to take down the monsters. At first, they are easily outnumbered, and it appears as if they are going to be killed. But then Colonel Mustang figures out that in order to finish off the creatures, they have to strike their heads. Using this technique, the group eventually starts making some kills. However, the creatures just keep on coming, so Edward Burden and his team are forced outside. There, the battle continues as Lust and her goons also show up. Colonel Mustang, who is still reeling from the earlier injury, somehow manages to conjure up all of his strength and unleash a deadly flame which burns Envy and eventually kills him. After this, the colonel turns his attention to Lust, but all of his attacks are futile. She keeps regenerating her body, even after being critically impaled through the chest. As Edward and the colonel look on in astonishment, Lust reveals that she has a philosopher's stone embedded within her chest. This is why she has incredible strength and healing abilities. Unfortunately for her, she reveals the exact thing that she shouldn't have. Edward, Alphonse, and the colonel gang up on her and unleash several attacks. And when she is distracted, the colonel rips at the stone from her chest, killing her instantly. Meanwhile, Galetny watches all this go down from a distance. Realizing that his comrades have been killed, he swallows his pride and sneaks out of the place quietly, unwilling to risk his own life. After the battle is finally won, Colonel Mustang hands over the philosopher's stone to Edward, saying he can use it to bring his brother back. The latter obliges and starts his alchemy, and the next second, he is brought next to the Gate of Truth. His brother Alphonse is also there in his true human form. Now all Edward has to do is hand over the stone to the deity in exchange for his brother. However, at the last moment, he backs out. Edward no longer wants to use the evil stone for personal benefit, as he has now seen how it can destroy lives. In the final scene, Edward returns back to reality and apologizes to his brother for not bringing his body back. To his surprise, Alphonse immediately forgives him, saying he doesn't want to use alchemy either. That is all right, sibling. In any case, I didn't miss my dick. He reasons that the taboo procedure put them in this state in any case, and it's ideal to forgo the stone until the end of time. The film ends as the two siblings, Winery and the Colonel, gaze at the sun, which is inept, pleased that they have saved the Earth. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.